Hello, everyone. Welcome to Virtual Cheese Awards 2023, where we showcase best of British cheeses. I'm Gautam Krishna, and I'm the moderator of this session. Joining me are two judges, Hero Hirsch and Richard Newell, who will be judging the cheeses. Judges, would you like to introduce yourself? Hero?
Hi there, I'm Hero Hirsch from Paxton and Whitfield. Paxton and Whitfield is the UK's oldest cheesemonger at 226 years. I am very excited about finding some delicious cheeses in this class this afternoon.
Richard?
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Richard Newell. I'm a cheese manufacturing consultant. I've been working in the industry now for just shortly over 40 years. I'm really looking forward to this diverse and interesting spread of cow's milk cheeses, and privileged to judge for the Virtual Cheese Awards.
So the judges are going to score with a point-based systems where they assign score to 5 different attributes of the cheese, and the cheese with the highest score wins the round and moves to the next stage. Today we'll be going through cow's milk hard cheese, and the first cheese we'll be doing is F10 1116.
Okay. This is a fascinating looking cheese. This was the one that caught my eye.
We've had some interesting discussions about this one off air, haven't we?
I wonder if, because we've got hot samples of this cheese that we recently cooked, if we should do those first, before we do the appearance and do that stuff afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, like they said on Blue Peter, here's one we prepared earlier, and it makes absolute sense, doesn't it, to eat it cooked?
Yeah, absolutely. So should we do texture?
Yeah,
first?
yeah, texture.
Yep.
And this is a squeaky style cheese. This is like a sort of like a Finnish style of kind of halloumi type cheese.
It's gone quite light though and fluffy.
Squeaky, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
A little bit chewy.
So how much score would you give for the texture?
I'd give that an 8 out of 10 for texture, actually.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that.
Out of 10. Do you want to go for the flavor first and then move on to the...
Yeah, that's good, and then we'll circle back to the other two.
Pleasant, very savoury.
Very pronounced salt, isn't it? Which is
yes,
not unusual.
Definite salted. But you could imagine that would combine well with lots of other foods. Yeah, the end of mine are just puffed up like popcorn, actually.
It's very nice, actually. That sort of slightly like caramelized flavor. Maybe I'm being led by the appearance of it a little bit when I say that. The sort of brulee.
Like cheese on toast without the toast, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But you still get quite a lot of the character from the milk, I think. It's not lost behind the salt and the sort of squeak.
Yeah, quite a pleasant eating experience. So out of 10 for flavour, what are you, Hero?
I'm feeling about an 8.
Snap.
Great.
About an 8. Brilliant.
Perfect.
How about the appearance now?
Appearance, I just think, is wonderful. It's like, unlike something I've seen before, I find it actually quite difficult to judge because I just wouldn't have known to expect this. Hold yours up again, Richard. I think ours are quite different, because mine is really quite sort of has these patches. Okay, yeah. And the flip side of mine is totally yeah, interesting. We've got quite varied samples, I think, but I think it's very attractive and very unusual looking. I'd go for maybe an 8.5 for appearance.
8.5.
It's definitely got some theatre going on there. Well,
yeah.
Whether I would say it was attractive is another matter, but certainly interesting, Hero.
Yeah. I think as well, if you're having that in a setting where it's cooked or grilled, it's yeah, I think it's good that it has that sort of toasted appearance.
And how much would you score for the aroma?
I think it smells very nice.
You have to really to be honest with you, for me, the aroma is when it's cooked, because that's when you eat it. And flavour, you know, the taste is a combination. So
I'd say about an 8, 8.5. Would you be in that?
yeah, I'm an 8.
An 8? Yeah, okay.
An 8, brilliant.
How interesting. I'm glad we had the chance to try something like that.
Moving on to the next cheese, F10 1131.
Okay. Here we are. This cheese has been Swiss backed.
Okay.
Managing to destroy it. There we go.
So a cheddar, we think? The appearance of a cheddar?
Yes, we would say based. We've not got to aroma yet, but we would say it's probably a farmhouse type cheddar, and quite tight texture. But you'd expect that with the sort of the Swiss back packaging. It pulls a tight vacuum.
Yeah. Cloth bound at some stage. You can see a little imprint of the weft and the warp there.
Yes, where the rind's been. So appearance looks lovely.
Yeah, it does. Nice and even, nice colour.
Got some character and theatre. So 8.5 for appearance.
Yeah, an 8.5 sounds good.
8.5. And for the aroma,
I love it. So putting my personal bias to one side. Yeah. So fruity, woody, perfect sort of a. I'm sticking my neck out here, so I can't say it's from the West Country because I don't know, but that's typically what you would expect. Apples, wood.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's quite a lot of
cheddar, how it always was.
Yeah, and that rind, it's got quite a lot of that fustiness, sort of, not that sounds unpleasant, but mustiness that that you'd expect from a.
Oh, heavenly. So.
Marks out of 10 for aroma, we're thinking quite high, I'd say. There's a lot of complexity there, a tiny bit of like maybe sulfurousness, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm
between an 8.5 and a 9 for that hero.
I go 8.5.
8.5.
Sold. And texture.
Yep, just as I'd expect it, really. Sort of breaks down quite nicely, but
well made. It's not sticky. It's repeatable. It keeps working, getting some heat into that cheddar. So, to be honest, body and texture for a mature cheddar like that, that's probably a 9 for me.
Yeah, I go for a 9.
A 9. Flavor
coming up.
Really fruity.
Wow.
Really savoury, really fruity, not sweet, not too sweet, I should say. There's none of that sort of saccharine.
It's almost like a modern take on it, because in the old days, a farmhouse cheddar would only ever be savoury. And this isn't sweet like some of the cheese with crunch, but it's got a really nice balance to it. It's like an old farmhouse traditional cheddar that's moved with the times.
Excellent length as well.
As you can tell, I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
How much would you score this for flavor?
For me, it's a straight 9.
Yeah, I go with a 9.
Straight 9. Okay. Can move on to the next cheese. The F10 1132.
Very similar packaging. So if one was a cynic, one might wonder if to come from the same place. But fortunately, I'm not one.
Thank goodness for that. Appearance-wise, we've got a very, it's like a suspicion of a rind. I think maybe you have a bit more rind than me. Mine's really quite Like you can barely tell it's there, can you? Whereas yours, I think, is a little bit more.
Yeah, mine's more pronounced than on the sample, without doing any comparisons, to coin your phrase, Sarah. So, another example of
Yeah, I think we do have slightly different rind development, but nonetheless, I think the appearance is very nice. It's nice, even colouring. There's nothing in there that I'm sort of looking at and thinking I'm concerned about.
yeah, I can't. In terms of appearance, it loses a little something compared to my first sample. But again, very true to type. There's no mould ingress. So again, I'm an 8.5 for appearance there.
8.5.
Yeah, I'm happy with 8.5.
Aroma.
Shall we do a rewind? Lots of lovely apples, woody, fruity, farmhouse aromas.
An 8.
That'll do.
Right.
Body
The
and texture.
This one, it's quite firm.
You'd have to say it's a more mature version. Firmer, slightly drier, slightly stronger aroma. But it still breaks down nicely on. You can see.
I'm not convinced it's the same cheese.
I don't think it's the same cheese,
right.
But I'm wondering if it comes from a similar region.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could potentially get on board with that. Although this one I think has a little bit more. Sorry, where are we at the moment? Because I'm going straight into flavor.
The texture.
We're on texture, are we? Okay. Texture I think is good. I like the texture. I think it's got a nice chew to it, as I'd expect. I would go for what, an 8, 8.5. Would you be in a similar region, Richard?
I'd be in a 9 again.
Okay.
A 9.
Sure.
Flavor.
Flavor wise, there's a lot of complexity. I don't love every note in it. There's some notes which are a little bit, some nice kind of vegetable character. It sort of reminds me a little bit of, this is going to sound bad, but it's actually quite good. It's like tinned peas or tinned carrots. Okay. That's that sort of brothy vegetable notes that I am enjoying, but there's a lot of acidity.
I used to, for my living, I used to select all the farmhouse cheese for a leading retailer. And I have to say, I wrote wow on my form. So I think we differ here, or arguably, but for me, it's a 9.5 out of 10. I think for a farmhouse traditional cheddar, that's pretty well as good as it gets.
I don't think I can go to 9.5. I'm just, and it may be that we have different samples in front of us and we have identified that the rind was substantially different. It's just that mine is not, it's not quite in balance. The acidity is a lot higher than I would want for this style.
Yeah, are you getting tongue tingle?
Yeah, there is some like sort of prickle, definitely.
Are you settling for a 9 then?
Yeah, I can see it with a 9, but I don't think I could elevate it just because there's some parts to it that are not not 9.5.
So 9 it is.
I think as we get older, our taste buds die off, and I'm fairly old, so it probably gives me a better taste impact than you youngsters, you know. Right. I'm being positively ageist there, I think.
Moving on to our next cheese, F10 1107.
1147. 1107, yes?
1107, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got quite an interesting appearance here in terms of the kind of curd structure. It's almost like a sort of mottling through it, like
Yeah. Do you know, this reminds me of typical creamy or tasty Lancashire.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had a Lancashire here.
It's like a bird seed type texture, but we haven't gone on to texture yet. But in the appearance, that like bobbly, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
How much would you score for the appearance?
Particularly exciting from an appearance perspective.
It's fine though.
Yeah, it's okay, but
A 7.5.
yeah.
Yeah.
7.5.
Yeah.
Aroma?
Very beefy.
Very
Beefy, brothy.
Yeah. Something quite caramelly.
Yes.
It's quite pleasant. It's a pleasant aroma. I'd go for an 8.
Yeah.
An 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Texture. I mean, the texture is it's definitely crumbly. It's really like absolutely, it almost exploded. It started getting into it.
It's bitty, isn't it, Azri?
I mean, you wouldn't want to cut it into small portions, that's for sure.
No, it's I would say for sure that this is a tasty Lancashire.
Yeah.
It's made actually very similar constituents to a mature cheddar, but the curds aren't. The curds are allowed to acidify very, very gently overnight rather than being scalded, and so you get less of a plastic rubberiness.
So what's the score for the texture?
Is that the texture you'd expect of a cheese of this style? It seems to me like
it's probably here. It's probably slightly looser than you'd expect, but yeah,
yeah,
because when the curds are shredded deliberately to be in tiny pieces. So
it's not.
I'm probably an 8 there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to see it with an 8.
8. How's the flavor?
It's very sweet.
Sweet, beefy, brothy. Not hugely complex. No, it isn't. You're right.
It delivers the sweetness and those sort of quite.
Probably a 7.5 or an 8 for flavour, to be honest.
I'd say 7.5. Yeah.
It's not got that depth, has it?
7.5.
I think it would benefit from being a little bit less sweet, maybe, or sort of the balance is maybe a little off there.
Moving on to the next cheese, F10 1022.
F10 1022. Thank you. There we are.
Oh.
Just empty the crumbs off my chopping board.
Yeah. That's unexpected. I hadn't realized that there was going to be blue in this category, but we have a blue.
Any cow's milk hard cheese.
Yeah.
Whether you would say it's a hard cheese or a semi-hard, but hey, it's here, and we're going to.
It's here. Initial impressions. I'm just going to hold mine up to the camera here because it's not a rind, but there's some bluing there that's gone quite sort of shadowy. It's kind of got some little. It's a little bit kind of brown almost around some of the blue there. And the rind is a little bit sticky. There's some patches on the rind that are a little bit on the sort of sticky wet side.
The interesting part for me is if you can see the piercing needle line here, And because it's quite tight textured, the blue has flowered where the needle has gone in.
Yep.
But it hasn't radiated out with veining. And to be
Yeah.
fair, we don't know what this cheese is. It could well be that's how it's designed.
Yeah, to only have blue on the piercing.
Bit of a concern, any blue cheese, this is where it's been very open at the end and oxygen has got in there right from the start of its maturation. The blue's overworked to the point where it's almost gone black. And I think here, if you try smelling it at that end, check the aroma at that end, it'll be very, very fusty, I would think, compared to the other. You're getting a lot of ammonia?
Yeah, on the rind, certainly.
So I'm not quite sure where to eat that.
Yeah.
I think it will taste radically different at one end from the other. However,
I think it will. I'm probably just going for the ends that I'm going to enjoy more.
Why not? So for appearance.
For appearance, I don't think I can give it that high a mark, just because there's a few things there that I really think are not quite right. I'd probably be saying a 6 or a 5.5, unfortunately.
I'm afraid I'm on a 5.
Yeah.
I'm probably on a 5 with it, to be honest, and blue cheese is my area.
Let's go for 5 as blue cheese is your area.
5. And aroma?
There's some, it varies from one part of the cheese to another.
Very ammoniacal at the end.
Yeah, it is a little bit too ammoniac, I think, at the rind and at the end where the blue's sort of gone to town. I'm feeling it's not dissimilar to the appearance score.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm a 5
So
for that.
5.
5. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And texture?
Yeah.
So where there's no blue, interestingly, it's like a crumbly, which you'd expect because they're normally quite acidic when they're.
You might expect with a cheese of that crumbly texture that the blue would have gone a little further through it, but
yeah, it's not been very open textured, or it would have done. So.
I mean, based purely on the texture, I mean, the texture is maybe a 7 just in itself, but it's a reach.
I'm a 6 for that, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I just am.
Sure.
We try to, hopefully this is a sort of a positive feedback thing, but I mean, this particular blue cheese, don't quite know the story of the end of it, but that's had oxygen for a long time. That's something the cheesemaker can easily sort out. And to have the cheese curds cascaded so they're slightly more open. I realise whoever's producing this isn't trying to produce a Stilton because the piercing needles are vertical, where they'd be going this way. But I think a little more openness of texture would make a whole better eating experience. Just my take on it.
Yeah.
So what's the final score?
If you're reading this manufacturer, I hope it's not a wind up. It's meant constructively.
That sounds like it would be constructive feedback to hear.
What would your final score for the texture be?
For the texture, I think
I'm
a 6. Yeah.
The flavor?
There are some issues.
You get a different cheese if you eat it in a different area, but eating it as intended with some blue.
It's exactly that. It's a different story all the way through the cheese. There's some bitterness.
Probably a 5 or a 6.
Yeah, I'm around the 5 or 6 mark for that.
Shall we say 5.5?
Sure.
5.5.
Would you mind if I just broke out briefly and just gave my hands a quick wash?
Yeah,
Super. Thank you. Roll that portion of cheese up. Thank you.
Moving on to the next cheese, the F10 1176.
Okay.
1176.
Yes.
We have some more bluing. Another slightly blue cheese. The bluing almost looks a bit accidental.
I don't actually think that's designed to be a blue.
Yeah.
I think it's a rinded cheese that's had some ingress. Because I
Yeah.
can't see any piercing needle marks anywhere on the cheese.
And yeah, any bluing is, just around the rind, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. So what do you think for appearance?
It's hard to say. I mean, someone has cut this and entered it as is. So how is it intention? I mean, is it a fault that there's some blue to it? Possibly.
That's very debatable. And,
yeah.
Someone's made this with love and pride. For me, really, if it's going to be a blue, it should be a blue. If it's not, and for it to have that ingress there, shouldn't really be like that.
Yeah. I'm thinking appearance-wise, maybe a 6.
Yeah, I'm probably a 5.
Okay.
Shall we say 5.5? Would that be
Let's
reasonable?
do that.
5.5.
Thank you.
Aroma.
Bleach, little
Tiny
bit
bit
bleachy.
disinfectant-y. Yeah, disinfectant. Is, yeah. Which is a shame, because that may be some sort of taint, I guess, from.
Quite often you can get a brie type cheese with that aroma as well, and I just think it's how it is. For me, that's a 5 though.
Yeah,
5.
It's not filling me with anticipation for eating this cheese. The aroma, I'd be happy with a 5.
The texture.
Shall we look at texture?
Sure, it's softer than it looks, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually. I've just taken a piece out of the middle.
Yeah, I'm going to do the
making
same.
an assumption here that it's meant to be eaten without blue. So
texture is, it's sort of, yeah, this sort of semi-soft,
quite
squidgy texture.
It's quite a nice. Yeah, it's certainly not a hard pressed cheese. So it's not really in the right class, to be honest. It's been entered into a hard cheese.
Texture wise, it breaks down quite nicely.
Yes, it's got a nice mouthfeel, hasn't it? It's a 7.5 or an 8 on mouthfeel, I would say.
We could go 8.
Yeah.
8 for the texture and the flavor.
Quite a lot of fresh cream, kind of mushroomy.
Six, 7. I'm a 6, really, I think, being honest.
It's restraint. I haven't eaten any of the blue or the rind, and I wonder if I should. It's nice to see that the disinfectant isn't on the palate.
Yeah.
I could see that getting a 7.
6.5 then.
Sure.
Yeah.
6.5.
Yeah.
Moving to the next cheese. That'll be F10 1206.
One moment, I'll just wrap that.
Yep.
One 1206.
1206, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Again, quite tight texture as a consequence of the vacuum. It's a vacuum portion.
Yeah. We've got a sort of natural rind on this, which is quite interesting. It almost looks like bark, this rind.
It does, doesn't it? And
yeah.
it's nice and uniform and consistent all the way around the cheese.
Yeah.
It's quite a handsome looking portion.
Yeah. A little bit of rind ingress, but not like, there's a little bit here that I'm thinking might not be quite as intended, but it's a bit of a minor point. I think appearance wise, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I'd say maybe an 8.
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably an 8.5. Could we?
I'd go 8.5. I'm happy with 8.5.
8.5. Aroma.
There's a lot going on in all the different
Certainly very savoury, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I might just cut into it just to, because it's been vacuum packed.
I'll copy you.
Yeah, I think that's actually the aroma in the center is actually quite appealing. I'd be maybe an 8 for that.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
8 for the aroma. Texture.
Got a very firm body.
It's quite
rubbery.
Yeah.
Pliable, shall we say. Yeah. But it's got time to break down yet. I think the rind belies it. It's either been made dry to keep, when I say dry, made with a low moisture to keep for a long time. Or somebody wants it to have this type of body and texture, I guess.
The mouthfeel is a little bit rubbery, just a little bit.
It's almost still slightly curdy.
Yeah.
Almost on the edge of not being broken down yet. Yes, you get a firm bite or springy, yeah?
Yeah, very springy.
Which you wouldn't expect for something to have developed a rind. It's had to sit there for you would say for some months.
Yeah. So. Texture-wise, it's not quite what I was expecting. I think I'm maybe around a 7 or 6.
Yeah, no, I was a 6.5.
6.5, yeah.
6.5. And the flavor?
I'm afraid the flavour hasn't really developed yet. I think it's an exciting journey it's on, but we've taken it early.
Yeah, it's not really delivering at this age, but like you say, this cheese has potential that you could age it on and get more brittleness to the texture and a more sort of developed flavour, and it would be really it could be a really interesting bit of cheese. But I think
months on, Hero, not weeks on, months on.
Yes, sometime.
Probably needs 3 or 4, maybe even more months.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how much score?
So it's a 6 for flavour at the moment because it's just curdy still. It's not really got there.
No, I'm in agreement with you.
6 for flavour. Moving on to the next cheese.
One moment, just let me.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That'll be F10 1201.
1201.
Yes.
Looks quite interesting.
It looks very interesting. We've got a beautiful, I'll see if we can hold it up, sort of spotted rind there.
Yeah. Really, bags and bags of theatre on that.
Yeah, I think my bit's bigger than yours. Yeah, appearance wise, I'm excited to try that. I would go quite highly for appearance on that because
that's a real gem on appearance. So we've got to be a 9, haven't we?
Yeah, let's go for a 9.
A 9, yeah.
Feels a while since we've had a 9.
And aroma?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there, isn't there? Like sort of butterscotch and some like sort of stewed vegetable-y.
It's massively complex.
Yeah. I'm just going to cut into it and just check what it's like.
It reminds me of sort of a Balakan, sort of mature or an extra old Gouda with a point of difference.
Yeah, it definitely has some sort of Gouda type characteristics, doesn't it? Aroma, I'm enjoying the aroma. I think there's nothing.
Feels like an 8 to me.
Yep, I could go 8.
8 for the aroma, the texture.
Developing quite a brittle texture, like it's got a snap.
Proper hard cheese. Creamy mouthfeel. It's working, isn't it? Very slightly salty. Well, flavour there, though.
Texture-wise, that's just how I think it's really good.
I agree.
Go even further and more brittle, but I think it's good just as it is. It doesn't cling too much.
It's a 9, isn't it?
Yeah.
A 9 for texture and the flavor.
I think that's really good. I'm delighted at the size of the piece that I've got.
It's complex. I'm just thinking it's a tad salty for me, but that's for me.
Okay.
I would have been sort of 9.5 otherwise. I'm probably 8.5 or a 9.
Okay. I'd probably go for a 9. I think the salt is like quite, it doesn't dominate, but it's definitely, straight up.
It's great.
I think there's so much of this kind of roasted meat savouriness. I'm just really enjoying that.
Yep, me too. A good cheese.
I go for a 9.
Yep, 9.
That's a 9 for the flavor.
Yeah, that's what we were on. I think we've gone 9 for body and texture and 9 for flavour.
Yeah, we have some close ones.
Oh.
The next cheese would be F10 1202.
One, 2, 0, 2.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a nice looking, very golden looking cheese here. I think there's appearance wise it's pretty good. The rind is very even. I think appearance wise I'm very happy with that. It looks like a
yeah.
I don't see any faults in it.
It's a 9, isn't it?
Yep.
9 for the appearance.
Have got a very sort of small blemish there, but
I think I've got the other side of it.
Have you?
I think so.
Yeah. It's you'd have to say that's another Gouda again.
Yep.
Or as the Dutch say, powder. And I can't speak Dutch, as you've probably gathered. That's, I would say, even more mature. Okay, I've got a little bit of free moisture on the cut surface. Have you got any glistening?
No, I don't think I do actually. No. I'm just going to go into it this way and see if the aroma. I'm not getting a huge amount of aroma.
I've got a woody, almost like a farmhouse cheddar.
Mm.
Bit of an alcohol-y type.
Yeah, it's not like knockout, but it's not unpleasant.
No, the aroma 7.5, 8.
Yeah, 7.5 or 8. Your choice.
Okay.
So what are we going for the aroma? 7.5 or 8?
7.5, please.
7.5. And for texture?
Oh, it's pretty dense. Very chewy.
Quite dry. A dry mouthfeel. Have you got any little? I'm getting a little bit of a bittiness.
Yes, a little bit of graininess, sort of granular.
Yep. Yes.
I wouldn't quite call it crystalline. I'd say it's a little more granular.
Yeah. Okay, so the texture for me is an 8, really. 7.5, 8.
7.5, yeah.
7.5.
And I think we can probably cover the flavour off, can't we?
It's interesting. There's quite a lot to it.
There's tongue burn, isn't there?
There's definitely some spice. I've also got something herby, like a rosemary almost, through it, which I was not expecting.
I would say that's extra old to get that tongue tingle.
It's the salt is quite maybe a little bit overpowering. Just brings it out of balance slightly.
Probably a 7 for me, 7.5.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Definitely.
Cool.
A 7.5, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Moving on to the next cheese. It'll be F10 1178.
Okay. Let's clear my crumbs up.
Okay. So bit of a departure from what we've just been on.
It certainly is. I feel like drink a sip of water coming on before we move to a different flavour level. Yeah.
You want to do appearance?
Clean, traditional round, either in a bag, possibly wax unlikely. It's been shaved as well and trimmed. I don't know if you can see, it's got like a sharp edge here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I would say just intrigued looking at this. I would say based, well, the appearance, what would you say, 8, 8.5?
Yeah, it's yeah, 8 probably for me. It's like it's quite uniform.
Agreed.
There's nothing there that I'm, thinking is unattractive.
Aroma?
8 for appearance.
8 for appearance.
8
yeah.
for appearance, please.
It's not very strong. It's quite sort of lactic, isn't it? Just quite sort of.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Lactic. I would just making some notes.
Yeah, aroma wise, maybe a 7, 7.5.
Yeah, 7. I'm 7. Yeah. It's not a lot going on there.
Yeah, not a huge amount.
So 7.
Sure.
Yeah. And texture. Moving on.
Very crumbly.
Have you, if you squash it between your fingers and your thumb, you'll get that birdseed texture again, which leads me to think it's probably a Lancashire of some sort. Is it going like birdseed into bits? I would say that's a creamy Lancashire.
Where are we at? Texture?
Texture.
Yeah.
I think we're in your field of expertise here, Richard. Is that an agreeable texture for you?
Yeah, it's an agreeable texture for a Lancashire.
Yeah.
And we're not going to confuse texture with flavour. So for me, it's probably an 8 if it's a creamy Lancashire. I'm 90% sure it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an 8.
It's an 8.
It's an 8. And then we've just got flavour left to try on this piece of cheese.
There's some bitterness to that.
Yeah, there is slight.
It's almost, there's something almost like oniony or allium like in there.
It's not really working for me, to be honest. I'm probably a 7. Hasn't got any horrendous vices, but it doesn't really deliver anything that of interest to me.
I think 7 for flavour.
6.5 or 7.
Flavor?
7.
Okay.
I think we've gone for 7, yeah.
So moving on to the last cheese. That's F10 1230.
Play the board again.
Okay.
1230, yes?
Yeah.
We have another that looks it looks like a Gouda style. Who knows what we're looking at the moment, but it's obviously has some additive or flavoring in it. It's sort of quite evenly speckled, I guess.
Is it cumin?
I don't think.
No.
Yeah, I think it's herb rather than spice. Looks a little bit leafy.
Might be onion. It looks it's a nicely presented cheese though.
Yeah, no, I think so. It's like the whatever it is quite evenly kind of speckled through it.
Do you have a flavour? Sorry, do you have an appearance score in mind?
Maybe an 8.
Yeah, I'd go 8.5 probably even. It's
I could see it get
got
8.5.
interest, doesn't it?
Sure.
8.5.
Texture.
Aroma.
Yeah, so aroma. Oh, sorry, yes, aroma. Oh. Herbal.
I'm still trying to figure out what it is.
I think it's chive and onion, you know, or onion.
Yeah, chive for sure.
Chive. It's quite polarizing. Some people love it and others don't.
I said chive confidently when I tasted it. I wasn't getting that on the aroma so much, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I wouldn't necessarily want a really strong chive smell.
No. Tastes better than the aroma actually for me.
Yeah, no, aroma I would say I'm probably around like a 7.
Yeah.
A 7.
Yeah.
And texture.
Perfectly acceptable body and texture.
Yeah, it is. It's what you'd expect, isn't it?
An 8, would you say?
Yeah, an 8. Yeah.
And last but not least, the flavour.
I mean, I like that you could tell what it is instantly.
I prefer the flavour to the aroma.
Yeah. And we went, what did we go for aroma? 7?
7, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
7. Maybe an 8 for flavour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
8 for
that's
flavor.
exactly what I jotted down to, you know. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So that brings us to the end of the class, and we have another tie. Yeah. So there
Yeah.
are 2 cheeses of the same result. The first cheese is F10 1131.
1131.
Yep.
Yes.
And the second cheese is F10 1201.
120. Okay.
And the flavor score for both are 9.
So we've
Okay.
got a proper tie there.
Which order do you think we should retry them in?
One moment, just let me pack up this last sample from, and then I'm just going to get them both out again. Like 1131, you said.
1131, yeah.
Which I think is there. Shall we just do a taste test without discussing them and just decide ourselves which one we prefer the flavour of?
And then we play rock, paper, scissors.
Sort of thing, yes. What do you think?
Sure.
Or can we have a joint first? Is that allowed?
Yeah,
That is
that's
allowed.
Speechless.
I think they're very evenly matched. But I would agree that the cheddar has it
Shall we?
by a whisker. I mean, I'd be happy to see them go through as a
Joint.
tie, or
If they can
with
go
us as
joint,
well.
so Hero, if they can go joint first, we should do that. If the regulations don't allow it,
The regulations do allow it.
So
I
2 of the
wouldn't
cheeses can go
say
through.
that one's first and that one's second.
I think
but
they should
I'd
both,
happily see them as a tie.
particularly when you look at this today's judging, some of the cheese samples we've looked at, those two are both right up there, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
And they're certainly both better than some other firsts we've looked at in other classes.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I think let's put them both through.
Yeah.
All right. So after the final cheese of the class, after the judging, the 2 cheeses that'll be going forward would be F10 1131 and F10 1201.
Correct.
So that brings us to the end of the judging session. I'd like to thank the sponsors, Butler's Farmhouse Cheeses, for our aprons, and then for our amazing judges. Thank you so much, judges, to be on board, sharing your wisdom, sharing how it tastes like, for all your experience throughout the cheese. Viewers would have a great time listening to you. It was brilliant. And also to remind you of the live event on 17th of May, where they'll be judging classes for the categories English, Irish, Welsh, Scottish cheeses, along with some awards to recognized talents and passionate people in the industry. Also, it's the day when we'll be crowning our Supreme Champion for the year 2023. So that brings us to the end. Thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
Thanks.